Welcome back to The Explainer. I am so incredibly pumped to have you here today, especially if you're a focus learner who is absolutely determined to get the most out of your tools. Let me ask you something. Have you noticed lately that the more complex your instructions get, the dumber your AI seems to become? Like you spend all this time carefully crafting this massive, bulletproof set of rules, you confidently hit enter, and the output is just, well, hesitant, or confused, or completely ignores the formatting you explicitly asked for. Look, if you're nodding right now, you aren't alone. Today, we're unpacking exactly why that happens. We're going to look at how the entire foundation of prompt engineering has experienced a massive paradigm shift.
But before we dive into the technical weeds, I want you to think about this quote. One day I'll start. One day I'll change my life. But one day never comes, because one day is not a plan. It's an excuse. We hear this all the time, right? And honestly, it applies perfectly to how we build our AI workflows. It is so incredibly easy to tell yourself that you're going to fix your outdated prompting habits one day. You just wait around for some magical new model update that suddenly makes everything effortless. But spoiler alert, that day isn't coming unless you actually take action. So my challenge to you is to ditch those bad habits today.
Okay, let's dive into this. Are your AI prompts stuck in the past? It's a seriously relatable frustration. You're constantly arguing with your AI, tweaking a word here or there, practically begging it to give you exactly what you want, formatted exactly how you need it. You might be paying for the most cutting-edge models on the market, but if you're still talking to them using techniques from early 2023, well, you're essentially trying to fly a spaceship with a steering wheel. It just doesn't work.
Which brings us right into Section 1, the prompting skill issue, where we tackled these bad structural habits head-on.
We all do it. We blame the models when they start giving us generic or restricted answers. We think, oh, they totally nerfed the AI. It's getting worse. But here's the reality check. According to recent deep dives into the official OpenAI prompt guide, plus a ton of heavy production-level testing by top developers, what feels like model degradation is actually, well, a skill issue on our end. Think about the older completion models from 2023 and early 2024. Those models desperately needed heavy scaffolding. You literally had to give them explicit, step-by-step rules for every little thing because they were really just predicting the next token. But compare that to the new reasoning models. These are entirely different beasts. They already have internal reasoning scaffolding baked right into their core architecture. So when you take an old-school giant list of instructions and just dump it onto a new reasoning model, you aren't helping it. You are literally fighting its architecture.
And that friction leads us perfectly into Section 2, the mega prompt trap. Let's look at why these massive prompts are suddenly failing us.
A lot of developers are waking up to the fact that those massive 1,500-word mega prompts that felt like absolute magic a year ago are now actively backfiring in production environments. So the crucial point is understanding why these mega prompts degrade the signal. There are three main culprits here. First up, system role precedence. If you put massive behavioral rules in your user prompt, but the system prompt says something slightly different, the system prompt wins. It creates a silent conflict behind the scenes. Next is context saturation. Look, attention in neural networks is math. It's not magic. If you dump hundreds of tokens of boilerplate rules before you even get to the actual task, the task itself mathematically gets less attention weight. Your signal-to-noise ratio is totally wrecked. And finally, alignment bias. When you overprompt with things like never hallucinate and always double-check everything, you trigger the model's internal safety rails. Actually, you're literally optimizing the AI for hesitation.
But the rabbit hole goes even deeper. Welcome to Section 3. The structured output paradox, where format goes to war with reasoning.
And this brilliantly illustrates an incredible plot twist. There's a rigorous academic paper titled Let Me Speak Freely by Appier AI Research and National Taiwan University. It essentially proves that our industry-wide obsession with forcing AI to output perfectly formatted code is actually choking the intelligence right out of the models. Get this. When GPT 3.5 Turbo is given a math problem about overtime pay and is allowed to answer in standard natural text, it naturally thinks step by step and nails the correct answer, $460. But when you restrict that exact same model and force it to answer in a valid JSON format, it completely fails. It spits out $490. Why? Because it bypasses its own chain of thought to put the answer key before the reasoning key. By forcing the format, you literally break the AI's ability to reason. The researchers concluded with this massive industry secret. Stricter format constraints generally lead to greater performance degradation in reasoning tasks. I really want you to let that sink in for a second. If you're out there building applications and you're forcing your AI into strict JSON mode just so your parsers won't break, you are actively degrading your system's intelligence. Now, what's fascinating here is the paradox this reveals. The researchers mapped it out beautifully. For reasoning tasks, like complex math or logic, using natural language yields super high performance, while JSON mode causes massive degradation because it snaps that internal chain of thought. But look at classification tasks, things like sorting data into predefined buckets. Here, natural language actually performs worse because the model might start rambling, but JSON mode yields incredibly high performance. Why is that? Because JSON mode brilliantly limits the answer space, stopping the AI from guessing outside the box.
So how in the world do we solve this paradox? That brings us to Section 4, Rules of Constraint Reduction. Obviously, we need strict structure for our apps to run, but we absolutely need reasoning for our logic to be sound. If we combine the official OpenAI prompt guide with deep insights from expert production developers, we find a unified path forward. It all boils down to a concept called constraint reduction. This is defined as the practice of shrinking a model's decision surface to remove implicit guessing. Because at the end of the day, less guessing equals less error. The goal here isn't just formatting for the sake of formatting. The goal is to carefully strip away all the unnecessary choices for the AI so it can focus 100% of its computational power entirely on a task you actually care about. So here are the top 3 actionable rules for constraint reduction that you can literally apply today. Number 1, use clear delimiters. We're talking triple hashtags or quotes. This tiny addition completely stops the model from having to guess where your context ends and the instructions begin. Number 2, force hidden reasoning blocks. Tell the AI, hey, first think through the problem step by step in a hidden block before giving me the final answer. This forces internal reasoning and can kill something like 80% of hallucinations right out of the gate. And number 3, use positive framing. Models are so much better at following a do this command than a don't do that restriction. Instead of vaguely saying don't be wordy, tell it explicitly to write exactly 3 sentences.
Applying these rules means we're graduating to the big leagues. Welcome to Section 5. From hacking to architecture engineering.
Guys, the era of instruction hacking, where you just try typing more aggressive words in all caps, hoping to force the AI to do what you want, that era is officially over. We're now living in the era of architecture engineering. The core philosophy here is simple to say, but surprisingly hard for some to accept. Stop relying on one massive mega prompt. You absolutely must decompose the task. Newbies always seem to think a bigger prompt equals a smarter system, but anyone actually working in production will tell you that smaller, tightly scoped API calls with strict validation will absolutely crush a monolithic super prompt every single time.
Let's move on and see how this builds into what we call agentic modular orchestration. Instead of trying to boil the ocean all at once, you break it down into a workflow. Step 1 is the planning loop. Your first AI call is just in natural language, letting the reasoning model freely brainstorm and generate a plan. Step 2 is the execution loop. A second, entirely separate call executes just one step of that plan. And then step 3 is the validation layer. This is a third call whose only job is to check the format, maybe outputting in strict JSON to validate those constraints. See what we did there? We completely separated the high-level reasoning from the strict formatting.
Which brings us to our final stop, Section 6, Day 1. It is time to start building.
We've covered the technical data, we've looked at the architectural solutions, and now it's all about your immediate next steps. To summarize this entire new paradigm, here's the modern pattern you need to adopt. Give the AI a clear system role. Give it a tightly scoped task. Apply minimal but highly explicit constraints using delimiters and positive framing. And finally, utilize multi-step orchestration to decouple the reasoning from the output formatting. It's less theatrical prompt magic and far more boring, reliable architecture. And for sure, that is the future of AI development.
So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative question. Which is it going to be for you? Are you going to keep leaning on those outdated mega prompts and just keep telling yourself you'll fix your workflow one day? Or is today going to be day 1? Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Go rewrite your prompts today. Separate your reasoning from your formatting and take your workflows to the absolute next level. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.